Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a Roman citizen. Extended full-length script. Imagine yourself waking up not in a modern home with warm lighting and quiet insulation, but in a rickety apartment block in the Subura district of ancient Rome, an area bustling with life, sound and smells, both familiar and unpleasant. The sky is still ink dark beyond the small wooden shutters of your window. The air inside your room is cool, a little damp. The straw-stuffed mattress beneath you is thin and uneven, but you're used to it by now. The ceiling is low. Your head brushes the cracked plaster above if you sit up too quickly. You rise before the sun. Most people do. There's no electricity, of course, no clocks ticking gently beside your bed. Time is marked by sound and routine. The scratchy crowing of roosters from a nearby courtyard. The scrape of a broom against stone from the level below. You reach for your tunic, its fabric stiff from repeated wear, and pull it over your head. Your home is an insula, a Roman tenement building. It's 5 stories tall, with thin walls and narrow wooden stairs that creak underfoot. You live on one of the top floors, which means your rent is lower, but your risks are higher. Fires are common. The water supply doesn't reach this high. If you want water, you must carry it up, step by tiring step, from the fountain in the forum. Buckets sloshing, arms straining, and if you're late, you'll find a long line or worse, a dry spout. As you descend the stairs in the early light, the scent of oil and stale bread drifts up from below. Someone has started cooking. You can hear voices, an argument in hushed tones, a child's sleepy whimper, a merchant rehearsing his pitch. Rome is never truly silent, even in its softest hours. You pass other residents. No one greets anyone too warmly. Everyone has somewhere to be, some burden to carry, some deadline to meet. Eye contact is brief. Smiles are rare. The street outside your building is a narrow corridor of stone and shadow. It's already bustling. Even in the stillness of dawn, carts creak past, donkeys bray. The clatter of hooves and footsteps echoes between buildings. You're one of tens of thousands, a commoner, a plebeian. Your status is legally recognized, but practically it means very little. You're not enslaved, but you're far from powerful. You don't dine in marble halls or walk through life draped in silk. You work, you endure, you hope for a decent meal and a quiet night. Some days, even that feels too much to ask. Your job depends on your trade. If you're a laborer, you report to a construction site where you'll haul bricks under the hot sun, your tunic soaked with sweat by mid-morning. There are no helmets, no safety rails, just scaffolding made of rope and wood and the constant fear of a misstep. If you're a porter, you carry goods from market stalls to noble villas, winding through Rome's twisting alleys with loads strapped across your back. If you're a street vendor, you fight for space in the crowded forum, shouting to be heard over the din. If you're a scribe, your fingers cramp from hours of meticulous copying. Food is simple. Flatbread, olives, maybe lentils if you're lucky. Meat is rare. You might stretch your coin to buy garum, a fermented fish sauce that adds sharpness to bland meals. The smell of it is pungent, almost sour, but it's a taste of indulgence in an otherwise meager diet. Public toilets exist, but they're shared by many. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, the sound of flowing water muffling conversations. Cleanliness is more aspirational than achievable. Bathhouses offer relief if you can afford the entry fee and don't mind the crowding. The warm pools offer not only hygiene but gossip, news and temporary escape. You depend on grain doles from the state, a nona. These are public distributions of wheat, intended to keep the peace and feed the masses. But they're not always enough. Lines are long, fights sometimes break out, and if the grain shipment is delayed due to storms at sea or political disruption, you're the one who goes hungry. Disease is a constant companion. In a city of nearly 1 million people, sanitation is crude. Waste flows through open gutters. Fresh water from aqueducts is impressive, but limited. You learn to avoid certain wells. You try to ignore the coughs in the crowd. There are no antibiotics. If you fall ill, you rest and hope, or seek a local healer whose methods are more ritual than remedy. Then there's politics. You're a citizen, yes. In theory, you have a voice, but in practice, power lies in the hands of the senators, consuls, and patricians. The city pulses with political intrigue, but you are more spectator than participant. You listen to speeches in the forum, but your concerns, rent, food, health, rarely appear in the orations. You are always vulnerable to forces beyond your control. Riots can erupt in an instant. Rumors swirl through the streets like dust. A new decree from the Senate might change your trade. A new tax could tip your family into ruin. Soldiers parade proudly in the streets, but wars abroad bring no spoils to you, only shortages and fear. And yet, amidst all of this, you live. You might visit a small shrine each morning, lighting a pinch of incense in thanks. You might pause on your walk home to listen to a poet or flute player. You might share bread with a neighbor, exchanging news beneath the glow of an oil lamp. Life is hard, yes, but also full of small comforts. You've learned to appreciate the steady rhythm of routine, the scrape of sandals on stone, the crackle of coals in the brazier, the flicker of lamplight on clay walls. These quiet details give shape to your world. And as night falls, you climb the stairs once more. The streets below are still noisy, but a little slower now. You close your door, wrap your cloak tightly, and settle onto your bed of straw. Through the shutter, you can just make out the glow of torches from the forum in the distance. Rome sleeps lightly, never fully silent, never fully still. But for now, your day is done. And tomorrow, like every day before it, you will rise again and walk the worn stones of the eternal city. Segment 2. The Fall of Julius Caesar, a calm, intimate historical biography. Now allow yourself to drift from the bustling tenements and shadowed alleyways of everyday Rome, upward through the marble columns and colonnades of power, into the world of a man whose name still echoes through time, like a quiet drumbeat beneath the stones of the city. Julius Caesar. His name conjures images of grandeur, laurel crowns, legions marching, oratory that moved mountains. But as we move slowly into his story, we peel back the layers of legend and step into the quieter corners of a life marked not just by ambition, but also by fear, isolation, and ultimately betrayal. Let us begin not at the end, but at the beginning. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in 100 BCE into the Julii, a patrician family of ancient but fading nobility. His early life was not paved with gold. His family, though of old lineage, was not particularly wealthy or influential. But Caesar, even in youth, moved through the world with a quiet, deliberate confidence. He was known for his eloquence, even then, for his precise way of speaking, his graceful bearing, and the way he always seemed to be thinking several steps ahead. As a young man, he aligned himself with the populares, a political faction that sought to represent the common people against the entrenched power of the Senate. This was a bold move, a dangerous one even. But Caesar thrived in complexity. He understood that to gain power in Rome, one must master not only the sword, but the word. He built alliances, he cultivated public favor, he took on high-profile religious titles, he traveled, he watched, he learned. Eventually, he entered into a powerful political alliance with Pompey the Great and Crassus, a union historians would later call the First Triumvirate. With Pompey's military strength, Crassus's wealth, and Caesar's charm and strategy, the three men dominated Roman politics. But it was Caesar who burned brightest. He was appointed governor of Gaul, modern-day France, and it was here that his legend grew. For nearly a decade, Caesar campaigned across the region, expanding Rome's territory and filling his personal coffers. He wrote detailed accounts of these campaigns, the Gallic Wars, written in the third person, calmly, even modestly. Yet the underlying message was clear. He was brilliant and unstoppable. But Rome was changing. Crassus died in battle. Pompey aligned himself with the Senate. Tensions rose, and Caesar, ever ambitious, ever calculating, made a choice that would forever alter Roman history. In 49 BCE, standing on the banks of the Rubicon River, Caesar made a quiet but earth-shaking decision. To cross that river with his army was to declare war on Rome itself. He crossed, without fanfare, without hesitation. Alea iacta est, he said to have whispered. The die is cast. What followed was a civil war, swift and devastating. Caesar emerged victorious. Pompey fled and was eventually killed. And Caesar returned to Rome, not as a general, but as dictator. And here we slow our pace. The city he returned to was weary of war, its institutions frayed. The Senate, though technically intact, had lost its power. Caesar moved carefully, but decisively. He initiated reforms, land distribution, debt forgiveness, a new calendar. The people loved him, but the Senate watched him. In February of 44 BCE, Caesar accepted the title Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. The symbolism was heavy, too heavy for some. The whispers had begun months before. In quiet corners, in shaded porticos, in private villas beyond the city's edge. He wants to be king, they murmured. Rome has no king. Among the conspirators was Marcus Junius Brutus, a man Caesar trusted, even loved. Their relationship was complicated. Caesar had protected Brutus during earlier political purges. Their bond was both personal and political, but fear and perhaps pride overrode loyalty, and so the plan was formed. On the Ides of March, the 15th day of the month, Caesar arrived at the theatre of Pompey, where the Senate was meeting. He was late. He'd been warned not to come. He dismissed the omens. He entered. What happened next is remembered with a clarity that feels almost theatrical. A circle formed. Words were spoken, gentle, then sharper. And then blades were drawn. No guards, no escape. Caesar stood surrounded by men he had dined with, fought beside, elevated. He resisted at first, then yielded. Et tu, Brute, he said to have murmured, seeing Brutus among them. And then silence. The Senate floor was stained with blood. The body of Julius Caesar lay still, the man who had defied so many odds, who had crossed rivers and redefined empires, had fallen, not to an army, but to fear, to betrayal. His death did not save the Republic. If anything, it accelerated its fall. The power vacuum he left behind was quickly filled. Rome would descend into further civil war, and within years, his adopted heir, Octavian, later Augustus, would become the first emperor of Rome. So ends the life of Julius Caesar, not with the roar of a battlefield, but the hush of political murder. Not in the provinces, but at the very heart of Rome. Tonight, as we reflect on his rise and fall, we're reminded that even the most powerful men, those who shape laws, build legacies and command legions, are still subject to the same quiet forces that govern all human lives: time, fear, and fate. Segment 3. Mysteries of Roman Engineering. Now, let us leave the shadows of the Senate and walk slowly through the streets of Rome again. Not through its politics this time, but through its bones. Through its arches, its aqueducts, its roads, its underground chambers. Through the quiet genius of Roman engineering. Because while names like Caesar and Augustus fill the pages of history, it is the silent work of stone and water, wood and fire that made their empires truly endure. Imagine yourself standing beside one of the great aqueducts just outside the city. It rises before you like a colonnade of giants, arches made of stone, some worn with age, but still proud, still functional. These structures, elegant, enormous, carried water across miles of countryside, from distant springs and rivers to the heart of the capital. They were not built with modern tools. There were no cranes, no lasers, no motors. Just the careful work of architects, mathematicians, laborers and slaves. A feat of measurement and patience. Each aqueduct followed a gentle downward slope, barely perceptible, yet it was enough to carry millions of gallons of water into the city, using nothing but gravity and time. Beneath the streets, the water flowed into vast cisterns, baths, fountains, and even private homes. At its peak, Rome may have had access to over 300 million gallons of water per day. All of it transported silently, in carefully laid stone channels under and over the ground. This was not just infrastructure, it was philosophy. The Romans believed that cleanliness was a civic duty, that water was not only a necessity, but a symbol of power, of refinement, of control over nature. The aqueducts in their silence spoke volumes. Now follow one of Rome's famed roads, the Vie. They stretch out from the city like spokes on a wheel, straight, resilient, purposeful. The phrase, "all roads lead to Rome," is more than a saying. It was a reality. Roman roads were marvels of precision, built in layers, gravel, sand, stone, engineered to drain rainwater, resist erosion, and endure the weight of legions, ox carts, and time. Many of these roads still exist today, their stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. These roads weren't just for commerce, they were arteries of empire, designed to move soldiers swiftly, to connect cities, to project Roman power outward like veins from the imperial heart. A Roman commander could march an entire legion hundreds of miles with efficiency that still humbles modern logistics. And there is more, much more. There were the baths, thermae, sprawling public complexes that functioned as gyms, libraries, gardens, and social hubs. Warmed by clever heating systems called hypercausts, where hot air flowed beneath the floors and within hollow walls. Even today, archaeologists are still piecing together the full complexity of these ancient HVAC systems. There were sewers, most famously the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Drain, which flushed waste from the city into the Tiber. Built in the 6th century BCE, it was one of the earliest examples of large-scale urban sanitation. It is still, in part, functional, still echoing with the slow trickle of water. There were temples and domes constructed with puzzling mastery. The Pantheon, with its massive concrete dome, still the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome, remains one of architecture's enduring mysteries. How did they mix concrete that has lasted 2,000 years underwater and above? What secrets did they use that we have yet to rediscover? There were even mechanisms, like the Antikythera device found in a shipwreck near Greece, believed to be a kind of analog computer for tracking celestial bodies. While not Roman-built, it circulated in the Greco-Roman world, hinting at a level of technological curiosity and precision that surpasses what we often associate with the ancient world. And yet, for all their brilliance, Roman engineers left little writing, no blueprints remain, no how-to manuals. Much of what we know comes from ruins, carefully measured, mapped, and modeled by modern minds. It is a quiet reminder that even the most advanced technologies can fade into mystery if not preserved, that the sound of chisels in stone may outlive the voices that directed them. Today, we walk through cities still shaped by Roman hands, bridges that hold, arches that soar, roads that remain. Their work was not glamorous, nor their names preserved in marble, but their legacy flows in the water beneath our feet and the stone beneath our wheels. So let us pause to appreciate these silent architects, the ones who, without applause, carved time itself into stone. Segment 4, the life of the elite in Rome. Now we drift once again, from stone roads and flowing aqueducts, to quieter gardens shaded by olive trees, to marble courtyards dappled in sunlight, to chambers perfumed with rose oil and lined with silk. Let us now step into the lives of the Roman elite. Imagine yourself walking through the gated entrance of a wealthy Roman domus or private residence. The bustle of the street fades behind you, and you're greeted not with noise, but with a gentle hush, an atmosphere of control and careful beauty. The first thing you notice is the atrium, a large open room with a rectangular pool, the impluvium, at its center, designed to collect rainwater from the roof opening above. Light filters down into this space, soft and golden, reflecting on the water below. It is peaceful, deliberate. The air smells of olive oil, fresh-cut herbs, beeswax polish. There is a quiet hum of distant voices, servants perhaps, slaves more likely. For in this household, as in nearly all aristocratic homes, service is omnipresent, but rarely seen unless needed. The owner of this home may be a senator, a magistrate, or a wealthy landowner. His tunic is finely woven, his toga meticulously arranged. His sandals are polished, his speech trained in rhetoric. He may spend his morning at the basilica, attending legal proceedings or listening to orations in the forum. Or he might retreat to his tablinum, the study where he conducts his business, scrolls unfurled, wax tablets scratched with names and debts. His wife, a matrona, oversees the household. Though not permitted to vote or hold office, she wields quiet power within the home. She arranges marriages, manages servants, instructs daughters, and keeps the family's reputation intact. She wears jewelry of gold or carved bone, and her stola, long and pleated, speaks of her dignity and status. Meals are no simple affair. The wealthiest Romans eat triclinium style, reclining on couches around low tables, surrounded by guests, entertainers, and an array of exotic dishes. Flamingo tongue, dormice stuffed with herbs, honey-roasted fruits, wine diluted with water and flavored with spices. Everything is displayed with care, not just for nourishment but for spectacle. Dining is not private, it is political, social, performative. Education is a point of pride. Children of the elite are taught to read and write from an early age, often by Greek tutors. Boys study law, philosophy, history, and oratory. Girls learn household management, music, and sometimes literature. Language is power, and the elite speak with clarity, persuasion, and careful control. And when the city grows too stifling, too hot, too crowded, the elites retreat to their villas in the countryside, estates with farmland, fountains, and libraries. There, time slows. The rhythms of Rome soften into the hum of bees in vineyards and the rustle of wind through tall cypress trees. Yet even in all this beauty there is unease, because luxury in Rome is fragile. It depends on the backs of thousands, the laborers, slaves, artisans, and soldiers who maintain the machinery of privilege. And the elite know it. Fear of revolt, of political upheaval, of favor lost in the shifting tides of power never fully disappears. That is why they build their homes with walls. That is why their gardens are hidden behind gates. That is why they keep their influence close and their rivals closer. And so their lives, while gilded, are never without pressure. A senator must be seen, but not seen faltering. A patrician must host, but never offend. An elite Roman must maintain the image of control, even as change gathers, slow and inevitable, just beyond the forum walls. From the outside, their lives seem effortless, but within, they are carefully choreographed performances, where wealth and power are currency, and appearances are everything. Still, in the quiet hours, perhaps after a feast has ended, a Roman elite might walk the colonnade of his home. He might pause beside a small family shrine, offer a coin to the household gods, and reflect on how far Rome has come, and how uncertain tomorrow may be. And so we see, just as the common Roman labors under the sun, the elite Roman labors beneath a different weight. Expectation, reputation, legacy. One builds stone with calloused hands, the other builds memory with careful words and political ties. Different worlds, same city. Conclusion, the eternal city, remembered softly. And now, as our journey through ancient Rome gently comes to an end, we look back, not as tourists, but as quiet observers. We've walked the uneven streets, traced the pathways of power, listened to the hush of aqueducts and the murmur of conspirators. we've seen that life in Rome was never truly simple. Whether you were a laborer in a crowded apartment, a soldier on the road, or a senator in a candlelit study, life in the eternal city was full of struggle, rhythm, and repetition. And yet, in its chaos, there was brilliance. In its engineering, beauty. In its politics, warning. In its endurance, mystery. Tonight, as you settle into rest, remember that history isn't just war and empire. It's footsteps. It's bread. It's a hand reaching for water in the early morning light. And like Rome itself, your story, though quieter perhaps, is no less important. Sleep well and let the stones of the past carry you gently into dreams.